Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Wednesday, the 30th of April. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barry, fresh from his successful trip to Thurhill last night. How goes it, Joshua?
Fine, yeah, just run of the mill, but lots to get into from that game, lots of talking points around it. I am fine, mate. Thanks. How are you? Nice weather as ever. I know people get upset when we talk about the weather, but when it's so nice, it feels a shame not to.
It's going to hit 25 degrees down here today, which is incredible stuff. Too warm for the old dog, which is a shame, but he's already seeking the coldest part of the house. Not good weather for Akitas, but there you go. Or Gingers, actually, as well. So, anyway, but we do digress. Folk are tuning in because they want to hear all about Rangers, and there is plenty to discuss. But before we do that, a quick word for our podcast sponsors, S1 Jobs. If you're looking to hand in your transfer request, head over to S1 Jobs and upload your CV. Today, with thousands of jobs across Glasgow, Edinburgh, and the surrounding areas, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. Right, well, you were on with Johnny last night for a bit of a bonus briefing. It comes following the bit of a frenzy yesterday afternoon. Came from an image from the Sandy Jardine stand of what looked like activity at the tunnel area. You done some digging, Joshua, and could confirm that, of course, the US consortium that is set to take over Rangers were in town and been shown around Ibrox. Images, video of Leeds United chairman Parag Marathi was there, and as well as Andrew Kavanagh and Patrick Stewart, Fraser Thornton, but we're showing them round. There was also another chap there as a director of the 49ers Enterprises, Raminder Dadwal, and they are in town, Joshua.
Yeah, they are. There were some murmurings towards the end of last week, Derek, partly because Leeds have this promotion to the Premier League to celebrate. They obviously unveiled as well plans for a new stadium at Elland Road. I don't know if it was a new stadium or just an expansion at Elland Road.
It's the expansion. It's an expansion of it. It looks absolutely brilliant, by the way.
Taking it to over 50,000. So there's some suggestions that there might be a members of the consortium here, which came out yesterday, and we confirmed yesterday. And as Johnny and I discussed, pardon me, yesterday, Derek, for some of the members of that consortium, that was the first time that they've been at Ibrox, and that was an opportunity for them to see it on a nice day. The public announcement last week, as we discussed again on yesterday's podcast, in line with this, is part of the very final stages of this deal getting over the line, the final I's being dotted and T's crossed, with an announcement pretty imminent over the next while before the end of the season, we are led to believe, all going well. So an exciting time for people to, I guess, see that in practice. Again, as Johnny and I discussed last night, there's a lot of work for these guys to do. Some of them won't be involved in the day-to-day running. Greta Steinson, of course, will. But what they will do is put their own people in place to run it as effectively from their point of view as they can. So, yeah, that tied in yesterday with the fact that Leeds have their promotion party. We're led to believe some members of that consortium will be potentially around for the weekend's game against Celtic, which is on Sunday, isn't it? As the season comes to an end, and the confirmation of this takeover is made public not long after. Obviously, the first confirmation publicly was made last week between the two parties that this deal was getting towards the finalisation stage.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It certainly is. And Greta Steinson was there last night as well, all looking very smart. Although there was a comment saying that John Montague says, someone need to advise the Americans of the club dress code, i.e. white shirt, club tie, brown brogues, etc. I'm sure they'll be made aware of that, John. Don't worry about that. But this is the first time we have seen Andrew Kavanagh and Greta Steinson at games before, Joshua. They've been very visible at recent matches. But of course, these are other components of that consortium, which is certainly Have we seen Parag Marathi? We've seen it at Old Trafford, haven't we, for the Man United game?
Yeah, but I don't believe he was a guest of the club. I think that was that was part of the party that Steinson had at that game, which was way back in January, wasn't it? Kavanagh visited Ibrox. It was a St Johnstone game where there was protests. Rangers won 3-1. That was sometime back in January too. He's definitely been the most visible figure. Greta Steinson has increasingly been around too. And that week where Rangers defeated Celtic away from home and Fenerbahce away from home, they were both at both of those games. We flying in from the US over to Istanbul for that first leg against Jose Mourinho's side. Steinson is the one that's going to be more involved with the day-to-day operations, maybe not day-to-day, but certainly week-to-week and sort of bigger picture things from a footballing point of view. He was involved in the sporting director process. He'll be involved in the appointment of a manager too, and he's very much the consortium's trusted football voice. That's what people continually speak about, and the phrase that people come back to. So he'll be there again. Kavanagh is probably going to be more visible than Marathi, who's obviously got those links to Leeds, but will still have some involvement. However visible that is, we're not entirely sure going forward. But yeah, a big moment in this deal, Derek, for them to be seen publicly at Ibrox. Yeah. I don't think it's undeliberate, that there's a little bit more of this happening in public as the deal edges towards conclusion. Because again, it's a big thing to pull together from both sides. This is not one person buying shares off another person. There's a number of people on each side trying to come together and form a deal. And as we keep coming back to, and I think we've retained all along, the noises about this have always been very, very positive. And now it's, I think, just about trying to get it over the line and finish it, and then start a big, big job this summer and moving forward.
It's a big job, but it's a very, as Nicky said a few moments ago, it's an exciting summer ahead, I think, Joshua. Imagine if this wasn't taking place, how sort of depressing the outlook would be, given that the season that has just unfolded. But now there seems to be a real groundswell of optimism and where Rangers can now go, because we all know last season and previous seasons domestically have been so far off it defies belief. But these guys are coming in. You mentioned it is going to be a big job, but they won't want to be playing second fiddle in Scotland. They'll be wanting to put Rangers back on the pedestal, back on the top of the tree. What are we expecting over the summer, do you reckon? Do you think lots of money will be spent on developing, revamping this squad?
More than would have been available previously. And I think transfer plans are still, obviously Kevin Thelwell hasn't started officially. He will, I think it's fair to say, be part of things maybe before he officially joins. That's how these things tend to work. It's not as if he's not going to speak to anyone at the club, you would imagine, prior to his official starting date. The transfer plans for the summer, I believe that there's an element of that still on hold until, and this lines up with the manager as well. Rangers are a club who don't have this sort of club DNA. They don't have this is our playing style, this is what we're recruiting for, and they've obviously had an interim manager for the last number of months. So it's been difficult to sort of plan for going forward. And as we've continually discussed with the team selection, Derek, it's been a team that is largely, the team selection has largely been about the weekend and not about next season. Again, speaking to Johnny last night, it was put to me by one person recently that there could be as many as 15 players leaving Ibrox this summer. If you think of all the players who are coming back from loan deals, if you think of those who are at contract, and if you think of the likes of Cyril Dessers, Nico Raskin, Hamza Egeman, Ridvan Yilmaz, all players who have uncertain futures for one reason or another, obviously Raskin and Egeman because of the interest in them. Raskin's on a shorter contract than Egeman. I think he's the most likely to leave as things stand, rather than being the player that is built around. And then you've got Ridvan and Dessers, who still have 2 years left on their deals, but you're not going to get more money from them than you are probably in this summer window. So there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of work to be done in a quick space of time. I think what Rangers will have is a commitment from the top of the club to make this a long-term project. And I think that's an important detail, because it's not as if they haven't had ideas or visions in recent years, but you need it at the top of the club for it to be implemented. That's why it's important you have a sporting director over the manager, over the full football department, because then they have the authority to kind of implement these decisions. there'll be an element, I think, of Kevin Thelwell and the manager joining in with some aspects of what Rangers have been doing from a recruitment point of view. I'm sure he'll want to put his own stamp on it too. Clearly, it's a squad that needs a lot of work, but also you're going to have to build around elements of it. And this is why I think that the topic of playing young players is so important. You're going to need them next season. Someone like Oscar Cortes, for example, who is going to join Derek. This is why I think he needs to play football between now and the end of the season. He needs that exposure. I know he's had his significant injury issues, but he is one player who's going to be around, and it makes sense to try and get the guys who are here definitely next season as much exposure and experience of Scottish football as possible.
Yeah, we'll touch on Cortes in a minute. World's Greatest DJ says, I'll be in San Francisco in July if the Rangers Review needs any roving reporters. Yes, any information you can find out there would be greatly appreciated. We should get you on the show. That would be absolutely fantastic. Very exciting stuff. In terms of a summer, I don't think I've looked forward to a summer since, when Gerrard took over, and then going way back, I think when Advocat first took over, that summer was incredible when Rangers were just bringing in real big quality signings. It seemed to be like every day at some point. That really summer of '98 was incredible. This could be another one of those summers. Cannot wait for things to going. Like you say, Joshua, big summer awaits. Got Champions League qualifiers round the corner. You'd like to think that a manager it will be in place before too long as well, and then we can get cracking and get that squad. And I think it's important Rangers bring in the big hitters. Guys are looking to build the team around early. Now, understand, as I think I said on the Q&A show the other day there, doesn't always work like that, and often transfers are laborious things. Negotiations take place. Clubs that are looking to sell are looking to get as much money as they can for players, and need to meet in the middle. But hopefully they can get the players, the key players that they need to enhance the squad. They can get them in early and get working, because I think it's vitally important that Rangers start well, and that means from now, basically. As soon as that window opens, it's time to sprint out the blocks. They can't be chasing their tail as has been the case so often recently. So I think that's vitally important for me.
You need a core to build around, and if you go back to, so there's a load of questions there at the moment. Jack Butland,
they might need a brand new core.
But exactly, because as I keep coming back to Raskin, I think it's more likely he goes than he stays. Hamza Egaman, I think he's on a long-term contract, but can Rangers hold on to him if a really significant offer comes in? And how much money can you get for those two players? Because this isn't a situation where because we know of how a PSR works in modern football, you cannot just go in and spend completely front load. There has to be an element of considering your incomings too, in terms of how much money you're putting into the squad. In an ideal world, you probably have Egaman and Raskin as your core in the midfield and up top that you build around. But we don't know what's going to happen with those two players. As I say, probably likelier Raskin goes and stays. Then you look at the defence, the centre of defence, and we've got something coming on the website too about this soon. So many unknowns there, because John Souttar still hasn't signed a new contract at the club. He's also 28. But is he, Derek, the player that you build around? Is he your kind of core centre?
You should always be looking to improve. For me, I think you need two centre backs.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, because I think you need quality in there beyond Souttar. You've got Nsiala. Is Clinton Nsiala ready to be one of the four centre halves? Definitely for me. But again, I think he should have played more football in the last couple of months. Robin Proper, Leon Balogun's out of contract, Narecio Kasanwirjo, who was playing last night. That's another interesting little subplot. And I've forgotten one centre half as well. Who have I forgotten there?
Balogun, did you say?
Balogun, I've said. Rafael Fernandez, who is obviously on that loan deal, but hasn't really seen any game time. And then the goalkeeping situation too. Jack Butland, how likely is it that he's at Rangers next season? Because he's not come back into the team. Do you bank on him being able to recover and having that number one jersey next season? So there's so many unknowns at the moment, and that's before you talk about Rizvan and Cyril Dessers too. That's before you talk about someone like Yanis Hadji, who's out of contract in the summer. there's just so many moving pieces. So I agree with you in that last season was a little bit like this, where there was a lot of indecision in how Rangers could operate because they had to get players out the door first. I still think they've signed some really exciting young players who have struggled in a really bad team. In all honesty, domestically, Rangers have been a really bad team this season for the majority of games they've played. The task that this new regime have with people who are already at the club or will stay at the club like Niels Koppen is, how do you get the best out of what you have there? As you say, have a few players in early who you can build around, but it's unrealistic to think you're going to sign, I don't know, 10, 15 players by the time that those Champions League qualifiers come around. It's just not how it works. And increasingly, I think with transfer windows, because football goes so late into the year, there's a little bit of a hangover from that into the early summer too. So a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, there is, and but very much looking forward to it. Now, you mentioned a couple of players there. Kasanwirjo, of course, came back and featured and scored in the Glasgow Cup final win over Celtic. Rangers retaining the trophy after a penalty shootout win following a 1-1 draw after extra time at Firhill. So great to see Naratio back in amongst it. We saw pictures of him amongst it, the training last week, so he gets minutes last night. Played the first half of that game. Other notable players that were there: Finlay Cortes was captain of the team. Polencio featured. Aidan McCallion, who won the Academy Player of the Year recently, he was in that team as well. Xander Hutton at right back. I'm interested to hear how he got on, given I've wanted him to feature in the first team recently. You were there, Joshua. What did you make of it all?
Yeah, well, there was only 3 players. So Rangers retained the Glasgow Cup. I think it was a delayed final that took place in December. But this ties in to, we'll have a piece on the website about this today, with the changes that have been made in the academy. And we spoke to Stevie Smith about this after the game too, reported on it at the start of the year. The fact that Rangers have effectively disbanded their B team, and it's their under 18s with a few slightly older players, under 18s, under 19s, who are competing in these games. So the team that started last night, there was only 3 who started in that Glasgow Cup win, a number in December. I think Celtic had 7 maybe in their team last night who started in December, because they do have a formal B team structure. Still a young team. They still had a number of 17-year-olds in there, but it was slightly older, slightly more experienced, and had been together as a squad longer. Rangers had the likes of Aidan McCallion, as you say, Alexander Smith coming off the bench, or both 16-year-old. And the idea with this, as we spoke about at the time, was we're led to believe that early exposure is what's going to help these guys make the jump up to the first team. And from the B team, there's probably only a handful of individuals who are going to make that jump anyway. That's those who have been kept around, like Nsio, who I thought was good last night. Hasn't had much of a look in under Ferguson, but obviously played in the European game against USG under Clement. Like Mason Munn, who is injured at the moment, like Finlay Curtis, who was the captain last night and made his first start. Recently, Bailey Rice has obviously made that jump up kind of full time to the first team. But to just quote Stevie Smith, an interview people can read on the website last night, asked about the fact that, look, this is a young team. It's effectively Rangers under 18s or under 19s playing up a level. They're also training with the first team, remember, because the B team players who are out on loan are part of this training squad, which meets twice a week at the Rangers training centre, in line with the training they're doing with their part-time teams. Stevie Smith said, I spoke before the game about age. It doesn't interest me. I get some of my players are younger, but if we want to get them into the first team quicker, we need to expose them to that sort of environment quicker. And I thought he handled it well. Asked what the changes to the youth structure look like. He said, that's what it looks like tonight, putting these young players in environments like that, where they're playing cup finals at a younger age, getting to play against good opposition, senior opposition, boys who've maybe been out on loan with other first teams, exposing them to different things earlier in their careers instead of waiting until they're 18, 19 to play these games. There's so many things they can learn from occasions like that. And just finally, on the changes, he said, I'm not going to stand here and say it's going to be absolutely perfect, but it's something that needed to change. Hopefully it's going to change for the better, but the quicker younger players get exposed to first team football, in my opinion, the better. And it's interesting, Derek, because even just on our podcast, it's a topic that comes up a lot. How do Rangers improve the pathway to the first team? Why isn't it working? Ultimately, you need buy-in from the top as well, from a manager to give those opportunities. I think it took Philippe Clement time. Barry Ferguson has given Bailey Rice and Finlay Curtis opportunities too. But the idea with someone like Aidan McCallion, who's 16, has been on the bench, they have really high hopes for. Alexander Smith the same, Callum Burnside, is get them in these type of environments playing up a little bit earlier at the end of their youth career. Train with the first team, as a number of these players are doing, when the numbers need to be made up because the B team isn't there. The B team structure, it was deemed, wasn't working after they withdrew from the Lowland League. And again, there were so many changes within that, so many voices within that. It's going to be interesting to see what Kevin Thelwell does about this moving forward. It would be a big step, for example, to reinstate a B team. I don't think the Lowland League is a perfect solution. But last night was an encouraging win for that young team against Celtic. And obviously Kasanwirjo, the only senior player in the team, probably helped things in the first half. But a nice moment for him to get that goal after a lengthy knee injury.
Yeah, it certainly was. And I like the big lad. If Rangers can maybe get him on loan next season, I wouldn't be rushing in Oscar Cortes style and signing him on a permanent deal. But if they can negotiate with Feyenoord, perhaps bring him in and see more of him next season, then I think I would be all for that, because I think he's a decent defender. Yeah. Versatile as well, and he's got a finish in him. It might have been looked like a bit of a TB last night, but it's a good finish, a skilled finish as well. So well done to him. He certainly enjoyed his goal as well. You can see what it meant to him. So yeah, delighted for him. Comments coming in about injuries in that game as well. Finlay Curtis came off in that second half. Joshua, did it look a bad one at all?
Look, he looked all right. It was, I can't remember if it's Callum or Cameron Scott, the left back, who I thought played actually. I thought he had a really good game.
Yeah,
up against Celtic winger Dargy, who was pretty threatening. There was a lengthy injury delay, and he was stretchered off. So yeah, hopefully he's all right, because it's always worrying that when there's a delay that long. But Curtis looked okay, I think, from memory, but I probably wasn't paying that much attention after the game, so I'll need to check it out. I thought he was pretty good in the game, with the caveat of he was playing from the right hand side, and that's not his natural position as much. But he's got a bit of. I think Finlay Curtis has a bit of, although he's not a big in stature. You saw this in the Aberdeen game when he won that flick on header for Hamza Egerman's goal. He does have a bit of physical presence about him, despite the fact that he's quite young, and he's obviously scored so many goals at youth level too. So he'll be hoping for more first team involvement between now and the end of the season. But yeah, we'll seek to get some clarity on what exactly that injury situation was. Hopefully that doesn't negate him getting some minutes between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, there's a few comments saying he was spotted on crutches at the end of the
game. I think he was actually lifting the trophy. That's I just looked back at the video I took of them lifting the trophy. So we'll seek some clarity on that, try and get to the bottom of that. But hopefully he's okay, because he made that first start against Aberdeen, didn't he? And would have liked to get some minutes between now and the end of the campaign. I thought that was Scott on the crutches, I think, off the top of my head, but he was obviously stretchered off slightly earlier in the game. So not ideal ending for the young boys. No, not ideal at all. Let's hope he's okay. We'll try and get that checked out and see what the situation is with regards to that, because he's certainly one player I would have liked to have seen in the first team come in the games. Maybe don't imagine he would have got an opportunity against Celtic, but certainly the final 3 league fixtures of the season, he is one of the players that really should be getting game time there. Xander Hutton, how did he get on, Joshua? I was watching him with a watchful eye, knowing that you were so invested in his development. I thought he didn't stand out to me beyond anyone else, but I thought he was fine on the right hand side. The standouts for me, probably, I thought Alex Smith from the bench, it looked really energetic. I thought Scott against Dargy, while Dargy scored, that was a good battle on the left hand side. McCallion took him a bit of time to grow into the game, but you can see the technical ability that he has. It was a bit of a bobbly pitch up at Firhill. Yeah. And CO grew into the game, missed his penalty, but I thought he grew into the game and carried the ball forward well. Made some actually good runs beyond the striker, was called offside about 3 times when he looked plainly onside, and missed a good one-on-one chance, but again, I think he kind of got caught in the turf. a little bit. And obviously Maguire on the winning side of the penalty shootout. You can hear from him today on the Rangers Review talking about Jack Butland and Liam Kelly. He's obviously been part of squads recently with Mason Munn and not in the picture due to injuries. So, a good night for them. On Kasanwirjo, you do raise an interesting point about his future, because I think when he got that injury, there was an acceptance that that's the last we'll see of him in a Rangers shirt. And I don't think it's as straightforward. There's an option in his contract to make it a permanent deal. I believe he's under contract at Feyenoord until 2026 or 2027. I need to double check that. I put this in the instant analysis piece last night, but at the start of the season, internally, a few people viewed Suter and Kasanwirjo as Rangers' strongest centre-half partnership. He's obviously a versatile player, but he's a good player. He's a competent player, and he just suffered that injury at the worst possible moment, didn't he? Because in his flashes, he's played, regardless really of the positions he'd played, and he played right back, he played centre half, and he played left back. He looked very, very capable, and that versatility is definitely a strength. So, yeah, one to keep an eye on. The knee injury complicates things, and as you say, understandably, there'll be nerves towards that because of Rangers' injury record as of late, because of what's happened with Oscar Cortes. But I think you can see he's a good player, and it's good that he's recovered well, because that will allow him, wherever he is, to get a full pre-season in after what's been obviously a disappointing season for him this season.
Would you play him against Celtic?
Against Celtic? No. I thought you were going to say, would you sign him in the summer? Well, they only managed 45 minutes last night. I take your point. There's not an abundance of defensive options. So could he be involved in this squad? Maybe. I think it'll probably be a back three of, who will it be? Balogun maybe could come into contention because it was a fractured cheekbone. I'm not sure where he is. Could he play with a mask? You've got Robin Proper, John Suter, and who are your left centre half?
Inciala, maybe?
Yeah, probably Inciala. Tavernier and Jefty at wing back.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah. I'd expected there to be a very similar team, including Václav Černý, to the one that played at St Mirren at the weekend.
Interesting. Well, we'll get more into it as the week progresses. When you mentioned Cortes there, surprised he never maybe get minutes last night, given that he's not really featured at all.
Yeah, not overly surprised, because I think that it's the right thing. Talking about that early exposure and giving players these games, it's difficult if you then get to a cup final and you do just drop down 3 or 4 of your guys who aren't part of the B team and take these experiences and these opportunities away from the kind of 18-year-olds or 17-year-olds who you do want to expose to these environments. Kasanwirjo a little bit different, because that's his first football he's played since coming back from injury. Cortes has been part in a couple of training games behind closed doors. One of them was against Crystal Palace about a month and a half ago. Probably indicates that he will see some football.
He needs minutes.
He needs minutes in the first team. I don't think... The thing is, Derek, he's fit. So Kasanwirjo isn't fit. So last night, if you play Cortes, what do you learn? Because he's maybe not got match fitness, but I think the idea is that Kasanwirjo was earlier in his recovery, and that's the first football he's played. Cortes has played in behind closed doors games, and he played against Aberdeen recently, but he's not had a run in the team. And I know that his injury situation has been really bad, and he wasn't great against Aberdeen. You've got I don't know if you watched the video of the 3, Cortes, Chefty, and Egeman, doing their language.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. That was good.
Yeah, it was a good watch, and it was also just a reminder that these guys they're just young. They're young, and if you're trying to adapt to a club like Rangers, if you're trying to learn a new language, if you're someone like Cortes who hasn't played football in so long, and then you're throwing in here and there in different systems, and against Aberdeen, Rangers were playing it long a lot. It is difficult. You need to judge him after he's played 5, 6, 7 games in his ideal position. I take the point. He'll come back. He needs to show he's injury free. This is the longest he's not had an injury in a long period of time. And remember, he did suffer a couple of setbacks in training too. It wasn't just in matches. It was around the start of the season. I think it was twice in training that he suffered setbacks, maybe only once. So that's why I think he should have been playing the post-split fixtures. Hopefully after Celtic, he gets a bit of an opportunity, because he's going to be here next season. Rangers have invested heavily in him. so it makes sense to give him.
I would like to see him. I would like to see him against Celtic, to be honest.
So would I.
There's a point that came in. Timothy says, "Why play the same team if Barry says they're not listening to instructions?" I get your point there. I'd be making changes for the game on Sunday, not wholesale changes, but certainly keep some personnel alterations I will be making in that game. Just on Cortes, Chris says if there's a possibility, no, Kasanwirjo, sorry, by Casa, not risk him in this game. Last thing we need is him coming back early and being gubbed again for pre-season, etc. So there you go. We'll wrap up with this. Tom Scott says, guys, any opinions on Walsh reffing the game at the weekend? This is the news that Nick Walsh will be the man in the middle. On Sunday, he'll be assisted by Frank Connor and Dougie Potter as linesman Andrew Dallas on VAR duty. Just on Nick Walsh, don't think he's good enough to referee a game of this magnitude. The Diamande scandal earlier on in the season at Tannadice should have made it clear to Willie Collum and the SFA refereeing body that this guy shouldn't be refereeing games of this magnitude for me. But it is what it is. I get it's a small pool that you're bringing these officials from. I've said it before, I would like the SFA to go out and get the best officials. If that's abroad or down south, so be it. But let's just hope we're not talking about refereeing decisions after the game, Joshua.
I'll stand up for the refs, which will make me the least popular person in the Central Belt today. But no, everyone makes mistakes, don't they, Derek? That was the Diamande one was a very bad decision. I'll give you that. But
unacceptable.
It was a bad decision, but it happens at every level of football. Right? There's bad decisions everywhere. So, I don't. My opinions on the ref is I don't really think about who the ref is going into a game. But I just hope we never talk about refs, because when we're talking about refs, there's normally some controversy. Obviously, there has been moments that have significantly hampered Rangers this season, such as the VAR call in the December Cup final, and that has a material impact on the outcomes of games. So hopefully no discussions like that on Monday morning, Derek. Fair enough?
I wouldn't hold my breath. I think we may be talking about it, but there you go. Gaz says, Old Firm games should have non-Scottish refs. We've seen it in Turkey recently, didn't we? Galatasaray Fenerbahce game, or they think they were looking to bring in foreign referees for the game. It's not an alien concept, but I doubt that Willie Collum would go down that route, but he needs better referees. There's no two ways about it. Anyway, we'll wrap up there. Big thank you to Joshua, as ever, and thank you to you all for tuning into the show. Very much appreciated, guys. If there's anything unfolding Ibrox way, perhaps later on, then we'll be with you as we were yesterday. Joshua and Johnny did a great job coming on for a bit of a bonus briefing. But if we don't speak to you later, enjoy your Wednesday, whatever you are up to, and we'll chat again soon. Bye for now.